Welcome back, everyone. This character is playing one of the marketplace animations that I purchased. In this video, we're going to see how we can edit this animation and also how we can use Blender and Uefy to create new animations that just seamlessly blend in with this existing set. I have the same animation playing in Blender, but the difference is that this character is rigged with Rigify, and all of these Rigify controls are fully active, so I can just stop the animation, pick any frame that I want, and just start using Rigify to make any changes that I want to, and it'll just work. So for example, I can take this IK hand control, snap it to the FK chain, go into full IK mode, and now it's just using Rigify as normal. There are a couple of limitations. We will go over those, but for now, let's just see how we can set this up. So we have this mannequin that was rigged in Blender using Uefy, and it is important to pick a character that you have rigged in with using Uefy. So we go to the animation panel here, and then let's just start with an animation here. So I'm going to pick this one, and this is the animation that goes from a standing idle to a run cycle. Okay, and then I'm going to just right click on this and export to FBX, and then I will just export this to a directory. Back in Blender, I'm going to open the blend file that was used to export this mannequin, and in the armature section, I'm just going to go down here to the Uefy script panel and make sure that this rig value has the name of our character's rig. So just click on refresh list and update this if need be. Then I'm going to close the Uefy script panel and the Uefy extra tools, and now we can work with the Uefy animation tools. We can do file, import, FBX. I'm going to select the file that we just exported from the engine. I'm going to make sure that this checkbox for animation is selected, and I'm just going to do import FBX. I'm going to drag on the panel here so we can see the keys, and then I will just drag back this corner to get them into the center, like so. And I can set the end frame to be 21, and then if we drag on this timeline, we can see that this new armature that has the animation starts to move. To get the mannequin to match the pose of the animation, we have to set it to FK mode. So I'm just going to select the rig, go into pose mode, and then go into items. Let me just close this, close this, close this, rig layers to the top, rig main properties right underneath. And now we could either select one of these hand or foot IK controls, or we can select this gear shaped control over here. And we just set the IK to FK slider to be 1. So this sets it to FK mode, and we have to do this for each limb. So just do this for all 4 of them, like that. And now this character is in FK mode. Then we can look at the Uefy animation tools. I'm going to click on refresh list here and make sure that this value is the name of the armature that has the animation. This is the one that we just imported. Then we can look into this drop down. It's going to be empty, so just click on scan anim, and this drop down will now have a new custom value in it. So select that. So once it says custom, we can then just do match pose and then give this a minute. And now as we can see, the mannequin has assumed the pose of the imported animation. So I'm just going to hide the imported armature, and I'm going to again select all of the IK chains. And this time I'm going to do snap IK to FK to move them into the same position as they would be for the FK chain for all 4 limbs, like that. We can also check once by clicking over here and seeing just what the mannequin looks like to make sure that we are getting what we expect. And this is a real time saver, because up until now, if we wanted to match this pose, we would have had to have done it manually. Okay, so now we can scroll up here to the pose library over there, and you want to make sure that in edit preferences, this Post Library Thumbnails add-on is enabled. It's optional and free, and links are in the description, and it's really useful. So I'm just going to click on new, and I have to name this pose library. We need a very specific name, so it will always be called PLB dash the name of the rig, which in our case is always going to be armature because we have to use this with Unreal. And then we can add any kind of identifier that we want. Okay, and I'm going to click on this to make sure that it gets saved when Blender is closed. And now I will select the A key to select all of these controls, and then click over here and then add new. So you'll see we have a new pose here, and this same name should be in this drop down over there. I can also rename this to be move idle, like so. You'll see that I have a few lights and a camera in the scene, and they are positioned so that if I press F12, I will get an image like this. And then I can do image, save as, and then I can select a file to save this image as, and then just do save image. And then with this pose selected, I can go to thumbnail creation and do add, and then I can just select the same image file that I just saved. Now to use this library effectively, you need at least 2 poses. So let's just make another one. I'm going to, let's just hide the lights and the camera. They don't need to be visible for them to work. So we don't need them in the scene. And then Alt-A to deselect everything. I'm going to go to object mode, select this one, go to the last frame, and then back down here and then do another match pose. Okay, so back in the pose library, let me just select the proper one here. We could, let's just do Alt-A to deselect everything. Object mode, select just our rig. And then in pose mode, select all of the bones. You have to, the pose library will only save selected bones. So you need to select everything over here and then click on this plus sign and then add new. And this is going to be move run start, I think. Move run start. And then I could do another F12. I should probably reposition the camera, but that's okay. We'll just go with this one. Save as, and then save this as another image file. And then same thing again with this selected, we could do add, and then select the same image file. Let's put this back into the rest pose with Alt or GS, and I'm also going to hide the other armature. Then we can go into animation. Go to the dope sheet, and within the dope sheet, select the action editor and click on new to add a new action. Action is just Blender's word for animation. So we can add a name to this animation, and then back in layout, I can select the first frame, go into pose mode, and then with all of these bones selected, I can select move idle and click, well actually I can just click on this image here, it'll go into idle, and then I can just do I. Let's just do the whole character, it's easiest right now. And then at the end, I can select the other pose and then do I and whole character. And you'll see that within these 2 poses, because I have the start and the finish in the middle, I can do whatever I want. And I can create any kind of animation that I want. As long as I start with the idle and end with the run start, I can seamlessly integrate my animation into the purchased animation set. Additionally, if I wanted to get some support from, let's say that one of these middle frames in the imported animation was helpful in creating my own version of it, then I can also just match pose on that and put that anywhere I want, and I can take however many poses I need to get my work done. Here I have another character for which I made poses in the pose library. Just be aware that this is not transferable between meshes because of differences in size and scale. So you want to make one of these for each of your meshes. And then you could also go down here and chain the match pose function so you can copy over an entire animation. To do that, you just select the frame number. So I'm going to set the start and end to 1 and 20. That's the length of my animation. Then you want to make sure that you go to the animation tab, go to the dope sheet over here, and then within the dope sheet you go to the action editor and click on new and select give your action a new name. So I'm going to call this my animation. Action is just Blender's word for animation. So this is the name of your new animation for this character. And then we can go back into pose mode, go down here and then click on multi-frame, and it will key the whole character or only the selected bones within your character for the entire length of this animation. So I'm just going to click this here. This might take several minutes to update, so just go do something else, but at the end of it, you will have something like this with the character matching the animation. But our character, of course, has a full Rigify rig on it, so we can just change anything that we want to. Now, of course, you can't actually change it frame by frame because everything is keyed in on every frame, so this will be really difficult. But what you can do is use Blender's NLA editor to make additive changes to this animation. So for example, you can just twist the entire character and make lots of other edits, but you'll have to use the NLA editor to do this. If I go to object mode and select the original imported animation, I'm just going to drag over here so we can really zoom in over here. You can see that for every one frame in Blender, there are multiple keys within that single frame, and we can't actually select any of these poses. So if you want to pick one of these, what we can do is go to the animation workspace. Let's zoom in a little over here, and then we can put the cursor on the first frame. Open this. I'm just going to click on a couple of times in both of these columns to make sure that everything is selected, and I'm just going to scale this out. Now this animation is 144 frames in the editor, so I'm just going to drag this out to over here, and we'll just see what this last frame is. So okay, select this one again and just two more like that. Back in the layout, you can see that the frames have all been extended out, and you can select any one of these poses now. We can also rerun the pose matching to get the full animation in with complete definition, but this is really more of a secondary case. The primary use case for this section is almost always going to be match pose to get a single frame, so you can make your own animation. But if you wanted to do this, what you could do is just update the frame numbers to be 144 like there, and then over here as well. And now you can run multi-frame again and it'll update once more. So, but this is going to take a long time because it's 144 frames. So you may have to leave it running for a while. Now, once this completes, you'll have an animation that is 144 frames. But if you were to play this, you'll see that it goes really slowly. That's because you now have 144 frames, but a lot more than the original. Our interest in this is still mostly to get to individual poses. But if you wanted to fix this, you can. We can just go over here and use Blender's time remapping function. So I can set the frame rate to be 30, and that would mean that 1 second is now 30 frames. And I can set the old to be the length of the original animation, so that's 144 frames that we had in the original import. And if I set the new number of frames to be 30, means that this animation will now be exactly 1 second long. And whatever you set over here, you also need to set the end to be the same. So we have a total length of 30 frames again. So if we were to play this, I can turn off shading to get the full 30 FPS, and this is how long the animation will be. Now, if you wanted to make it even faster, let's say that you wanted this to be over in half a second. So we can just set this to be 15. At 30 FPS, 15 frames will be half a second. And we set the other thing to be 15 as well. Now if we play this, and this animation will be done in half a second. So you can use these functions, but again, like I said, mostly we're interested in individual poses. And if you do this, you'll see that Blender is just skipping over them So it's not particularly useful. It's just something that you could do if you wanted to. One thing that you should be aware of is that this functionality is simply pose matching. It is not a retarget. We're basically using the engine as a retargeting system and then importing the results into Blender here. So what that means is that if you have a character here, I will only ever import an animation for a character that was exported from the same blend file. So if I export this character from over here, then here in the engine, I will have this character that was imported from that same blend file, and I will only export these animations that were retargeted onto this Blender-based joint roll character. It will work for root motion animations, but I can't, for example, export animations that were for the original mannequin or for some other character. That's not going to work because we're using Unreal as the retargeting system. Another thing to watch out for is that if you zoom in over to the character over here, you can see that there is a slight stretch on the pelvis. And if we export this animation and look at it in the engine, you'll see that this was exported out of Blender. If I turn off the retargeting system to the default, okay, this is default, everything is on animation, you can see that this stretch is over there as well. But if we use it like with normally in a production system, this is going to be animation, this is going to be animation scaled, and you can see that it just goes away. There's no stretch or no problem anywhere over here. So when you're making animations with characters and not just the mannequin, you might have to deal with such slight variation in how the mesh is stretched, but once it's exported to the engine, it goes back to normal. If this bothers you, you could always just animate with the mannequin, which will have minimal variation. Even when we are working with the mannequin, there are bound to be some minor variations between some of the bones. These are really small things that you can manually adjust. The reasons for this is because, well, we're updating control bones on the Rigify rig and not the actual bones themselves. So this introduces some variation, and also partially because of the way the import is done into Blender. Also, the default match pose is only done on the bones that are in the original Unreal Engine 4 mannequin. So for example, take this character, it has a lot of shoulder pads and armor scales on the sides and on the back. So this animation that it is matching does not have any shoulder pads. It doesn't have a backpack or anything, but our shoulder pads move in an appropriate manner because they're attached to the rig. However, if your animation also had these same bones for the shoulder pad and whatnot, those animations or those movements will not show up in this pose right here, because like I said, by default the match pose only happens on the mannequin bones. Now if we go over here, will you see we did scan anim and selected custom. If we go to scripting, and you'll find this Uefy anim custom JSON file. This has a list of all the bones that the match posing will work on. By default, it is limited to just the mannequin bones, but you can manually edit and enter any bone that you want here. So you're not actually really limited by anything. You can have as many bones as you want, or whatever it is that you need to be in your animation, but you will have to make entries into that control file. Do also note that this character is several times larger than the mannequin, but the pose matching still works in Blender. So let's give an example. You can see that it is nearly twice the size of the mannequin, but because we brought it in from Blender after rigging it with Uefy and then retargeting our animations on it, when we export one of these animations, like you could just click on any one of these, go asset actions, export, and then import it into Blender, it's going to be the correct size and it's going to be correct scale. And you can see over there, let me just go into object mode, grab this and do it like that, and it'll just work out. So that's all for this time. If you enjoyed this video and if you find these new tools helpful, please hit subscribe to the channel and like this video, and thank you for watching.